Hello and welcome to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Wednesday, December 13th. We are here. We're breaking it down. It's an interesting slate. We have a little bit of injury news that we're still waiting on, but not a ton today, which is kind of nice. But as always, the NBA, you're never really sure what's going to happen until starting lineups are announced and they take the court. So now, let's get into it. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do. Everything you see here, all the props AI that we always feature on our prop show, and everything we do for all the sports. So let's get into the fun here. Now, we will do it. All right. So, 9-game slate. One thing that I need to bring attention to right away is this Indianapolis versus Milwaukee game. 257.5 total. It's crazy high. I mean, when you have a total that is 16 points closer or higher than the closest, you really got to notice that and take that into some account because it's really high. But even if it comes under, one of the other teams have to go over by a decent amount for it to match. So that's a big factor there in building some lineups today. Now let's get into position by position. We will try and get it done pretty quick here. So we got Jalen Brunson, Dennis Schroeder, Damian Lillard coming in the highest. I really do like Brunson. I think he is a great spot versus Utah. Schroeder, I like him. I've been going back to him continuously. Now he's in a pace-up spot where they're not great versus point guards. So I definitely like Schroeder in this situation. He's a guy that has a big-time ceiling for only 6,300, so I will continually take swings on him as long as he's priced around here. Lillard, I think, is in a good situation. 9,100. I mean, his price is fine. He's a guy that's getting mid-40s routinely. The issue is he just doesn't have a huge ceiling very often these days with Milwaukee. He is very consistent, is going to get you the points, but he just isn't the ceiling that he had in Portland when he was the only guy. Now, he will occasionally go absolutely nuts, but if you can get 50 out of him in this spot, you're looking pretty good, and I think that is totally viable. So I do not mind some Lillard. Some other spots that I am interested in, I got to go to Tyrese. Tyrese has just been absolutely on fire this season, and this 257 total is extremely enticing. Multiple 70-point games, which you really do need that upside at 11K. Now, I do have to say that I hate that his price has got this high. I liked him a lot more in the 10s or even 9s, but I don't mind biting and taking a little bit of Tyrese. Next, Scary Terry. Look, he's still reasonably priced for me. Look what he's done over the last couple weeks. 3 games in the 40s, 2 games over 50, 38. And you go to the beginning of the season, he had a 44 there, so he has a solid ceiling. The Heat also haven't been great versus point guards, and as long as Lonzo Ball is not there, he's going to be extremely interesting until his price gets up a little bit higher. The one thing with him, he does have a very low floor. He is a pretty good tournament play because of that in my eyes, because he's a guy that's never going to have a projected fantasy point total of super high, but that ceiling is there, and that's really what we need, and I don't mind the spot versus the Heat. And over to DraftKings, our highest owned, Schroeder, Scotty Barnes, and Jeremy Shohan. I like all of them. Scotty Barnes is extremely interesting to me in this matchup. High pace spot. big time upside. He's a guy that can hit 60, can hit high 50s or mid 50s, and routinely is in the 40s. So he's still somewhat safe with the ceiling. It's very, very interesting in a pace up spot that's quite a bit different and quite a bit higher of a pace than he's generally used to. The team total implied points 121. That's crazy. You just don't see that often from these Toronto Raptor teams. So I do like Barnes. Jeremy Shohan versus the Lakers. I don't mind going there. The issue is that with all of the guys playing, the Vassell, the Keldon, Wemby, he just hasn't really shown much of his ceiling, and that's my issue. Can he get you 30? Yes. He has shown a ceiling, where he can get 50s, but I just don't see that happening in this matchup. So I don't love it at higher ownership, and I'm not getting a ton, but I do understand wanting to go there. And point guard matchups, my guy Halliburton at the top, Brunson also at the top. Very interesting. D'Angelo Russell is there as well. And we do need to bring up this Laker game a little bit more. Both LeBron and AD are questionable. They played last night. Not totally sure what they're going to do tonight. But it's a very high-paced game environment, and the Spurs are just a great opponent to go against. If one or both of those are out, I think Russell looks real, real good. Schroeder's up there who, we like and don't mind going to. Fred VanVleet, I think, is a consideration every week just based on the minutes he's playing. I mean, he's getting up to 40 regularly, and we know he is a guy that can get hot when his shot is falling. Memphis allows a lot of threes. They allow a high three-point percentage, and VanVleet, if he's getting hot, he's going to be firing away from three. So don't mind going with him either. All right, now let's get over to shooting guard. Anunoby, Herb Jones, and Spencer Dinwiddie. I do like Anunoby. I like a lot of the Raptors tonight versus Atlanta. I just won't have too many of them in the same lineup. Probably, 2-ish max as far as the Raptors in a lineup. But I do like pretty much all of those guys. Dinwiddie, I don't love in this spot. I actually think it's a little bit harder, him versus the Suns. Suns are typically a little bit better versus point guard. And there's just other spots that I would rather go to on the Nets than Dinwiddie. Herb Jones, if Zion is out, he gets a big boost up, and I would like him a little bit more in that situation. Asu Thompson, we got to bring up. This is a guy that was absolutely killing it, earlier in the season. Played pretty well last game, 6.1K. His price, has got up there a little bit, but he's a guy that has shown a real nice ceiling, mid-40s, low 50s type ceiling, and at 6,100, I am willing to take some swings. Now, it is a little bit of a tough matchup versus him, but he's also low-owned, which, makes it interesting. Buddy Hield. Look, Buddy Hield can shoot. And in a game with a total this high, you're going to need some shooting. So I am definitely intrigued at 5,800. He can get into the 30s. And we've seen games where he's, put up 31 real points, 59 fantasy points. And I don't mind having that in on my fantasy team. The one thing I will say is that he's just been right around 30 lately. And that's not going to get it done. We're going to need to see a little bit more out of him. But it is a pretty high-paced game, high-scoring game, so those opportunities should be there. Scary Terry we talked about, and last guy I want to talk about here, two actually. Colin Sexton. All right, so Jordan Clarkson's out. I was on Sexton a lot last game. He had 26 minutes. He's likely still to come off the bench, but if he's a starter, I think he's a near lock. If as just coming off the bench, he's going to stay low owned, which is interesting, but it's a little sketchy because we don't know how many minutes he's going to get. And Utah's been all over the place on his minutes all season long. But if he's going to get the minutes, I think he's in a very, very good spot. 1.15 fantasy per minute type guy without Clarkson. And he can kind of fill up that stat sheet, kind of like Cole Anthony can, very quickly, who I was a guy I was on in a similar spot before his price went way up. So I think Cole's interesting, but, wait for some news here. Don't 100% know what Utah's going to do because they've been doing some weird stuff with their lineups, really trying to force the younger guys in. So we'll see what happens there, but I am intrigued here. Chris Middleton. All right. His price is coming up finally, 6,600. But look, 33 minutes last game, 30 the time before that, 26. He is starting to get into those 30-plus minutes, and that is what we need. He put up 36 in 30 minutes versus them last week. And if he's getting routinely 30-plus minutes, he's in a great spot, and I absolutely will take him. As of now, I think he is my highest owned buck, and I will probably be going to a decent amount of him tonight. And shooting guard for DK, Anunoby, Ingram, and Caleb Martin. Well, I'm going to have a lot of Caleb Martin today. I think he is in a good spot versus the versus the Hornets, and mid-30s is what he's been doing as a starter with a nice ceiling of 50s. Not worried to go back there today. Brandon Ingram. Ingram is the one that gets the hurt the most by CJ and Zion being healthy, but if without Zion, he gets helped the most. So I think having Zion healthy or not matters a lot more to him than anybody else, but it is a great matchup. Understand why people are getting there. Don't hate it. Don't love it. Now we'll get over to matchups. Brandon Miller, Utah's Ogbajai. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I am sorry, sir. Melton and Ingram kind of top of the board here. I do think Melton's a little bit interesting. They are 12-point favorites, though. So, there is a good chance that game is over by the third quarter. And whoever was the reason that they were, big favorites or got that huge lead is likely to be the only one optimal. And pick your poison on which guy that is. Could be a few of them. And let's get over to small forward here. So, high-owned guys, Scotty Barnes, Ingram, Anunoby. Talked about all three of them. Don't mind any of them. Thompson, we talked about. Kyle Kuzma, we have not talked about. It's only an 8-point spread. Big point total. He was crushing last game versus Philly before he didn't just come back in the game. They've been blown out the last 2 games, but before that, mid-30s with a solid ceiling, I'm in on, and in a spot where the total's 241, I'm pretty intrigued. It's just the Wizards, and they're absolutely terrible. Literally the only chance they have is Kuzma playing really well, or Poole getting hot, which Poole has just been a terrible signing, it looks like. Caleb, we talked about. Cameron Johnson, a couple things here. Suns aren't great versus the power forward, so I like Cameron Johnson for that. Also, it is a revenge game if you want to go down that narrative, but also in Phoenix, a place he's used to and a rim he's used to, all that kind of stuff. So I do like Cameron Johnson a little bit and probably will be taking some swings on him. Sadiq Bey is a guy that I'm interested in to bring back with those Raptors. Look, high total. Bey is also on the top of our matchup tool. And if DeAndre Hunter is out, I think his minutes of like 35 plus are secure. Where if you see the last 4 games, 36, 37, 38, 40, if he's getting that kind of minutes and he gets hot. He has a real nice ceiling at his price. His price is starting to get up there a little bit, though, where that ceiling is, getting a little bit lower salary adjusted wise. But I'm intrigued on some Bay there. And small forward, Barnes, Ingram, Martin, we talked about them. Going over to matchup tool. Jimmy B, Barrett, and Middleton. All three I am extremely intrigued about. Butler's pretty obvious. His price is up there, but no Bam, no Haywood Highsmith. It's his show right now, and he's been playing minutes regularly. It's just, the thing is that he needs to get into the 50s at this price to really pay it off, and I don't know if he does that tonight. RJ Barrett. I actually do like RJ Barrett tonight. He's another guy, top of the matchup tool, in a good game environment for the Knicks. Don't mind going there. I do like Barrett, Brunson, and Randall. Of those three, I would say Randall is probably my favorite, though. And Middleton, we discussed already. Power forward, Barnes, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jimmy B. Look, you can't go wrong with any of them. Giannis, 12K, he's up there. He is more consistent with the 60s than whatchamacallit, Tyler Halliburton. Sorry, I was blanking on his name real quick. But he has a pretty much the same ceiling as Halliburton. So I don't really love one more than the other. Giannis is going to be higher owned, but, so giving a little more leverage to Halliburton. I think it's a very interesting pairing, doing like a Halliburton and Middleton and fading kind of the Giannis ownership. With that being said, I would not fade Giannis totally. I do like him, just not going to get to, 30+% of him or something like that. I will probably be more around 10-15%. Scotty Barnes, do not mind him whatsoever, as we talked about. Jimmy B, the same. Lower owned guys I'm interested in: Julius Randle, Pascal Siakam, Kuzma, Caleb Martin, Cameron Johnson, Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis is a guy I want to talk about. He has a big time upside when he gets the run and gets some extra minutes. It's just we never know when that's going to happen. But I do think he's very interesting, and with how quickly he can score fantasy points and the type of ceiling he has, I do like him in this high pace environment. Pascal, like I said, I like a lot of the Raptors. I just would only play 2+, not 2 or under. I wouldn't go over to 3 in a single lineup. Julius Randle, look, guy's been playing very well, and he's still priced too low and has a great matchup versus the Jazz. So I am extremely intrigued in Randle in a pace-up spot for him, of which he could really do well. And it's one of the later games of which there's only 2. So definitely intrigued with some Randle there. Now, power forward, we got Giannis, Herb Jones, and Wemby. Look, Wemby's played the center position the last 2 games, over 50 both games. We know he has a high ceiling. Lakers can absolutely get dusted by a big man. While they've been a lot better lately, I think you got to be a little bit intrigued with Wemby at home versus the Lakers. And we also don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers' injury status, which could change things a lot and make it a little bit closer of a game. But very, very intrigued by Wemby. Jones, Giannis, don't mind him. And over to matchups. Sadiq Bey at the very top. Told you I liked him. Told you he's done well. Our power forwards have done well versus Toronto. Siakam's there too. Cam Johnson's there. Giannis is there. So a lot of guys we have talked about already high on that. Now, FanDuel center ownership: Jonas Valanciunas, Nick Richards, and Isaiah Stewart. Stewart's only 9%, so we just won't even talk about him. Richards, 20%. I think he's very interesting, and I don't mind going back. Bam is out. They're just not as good down low without Bam. And Richards, can score some fantasy points. While in his starts, he's only been like 0.81 fantasy points per minute. He is a guy that's more like, 1 fantasy per minute, and, he's going to get 26, 28 minutes. So makes that median projection high. It's just, can he really show a ceiling, which we haven't really seen yet, but I am intrigued and definitely have some of him. Jonas Valanciunas has been getting a lot of minutes lately. Now, he played a lot of minutes versus Minnesota, who have a lot of big men. Versus the Lakers, only 23 minutes. Sacramento, 29. They have a solid big man. Bulls, solid big man, 36. San Antonio, 31. 32 versus Philly. Washington isn't exactly that, and Gafford is questionable. So I do see that this is a game that Valanciunas could play a little bit less minutes. I'm not super high on him today because of that, with the high ownership, but it is a decent matchup if he gets the minutes. I'm just not totally sold on him getting those minutes. Now, guys I like, we talked about Portis. I also think you can go back to Orlando Robinson. The Hornets have been really bad versus center for a long time. They're better with Mark Williams, but without Mark Williams, it's a lot worse. And Nick Richards is part of that defensive problem at the center position. So I don't mind getting to some Orlando Robinson here. I am a little worried that he only played 22 last game, but 5 fouls. So fouls are definitely an issue there versus Cleveland. He got 3 fouls, only played 20 minutes. So I am concerned about the minutes here. If he is going to get 26, 28 minutes, I think he's in a real good spot to do well as for us here. Brook Lopez, I think, is priced a little bit too high at 7,100, but nobody's going there in a game environment that we really, really like. And definitely intrigued by going there. And I also would not mind going to Miles Turner on the other side of that matchup. Now, I generally would not take, centers or power forwards against each other. The interesting spot here is that both of these centers aren't really prolific rebounders and score their fantasy points in other ways, blocks, points, and whatnot. So I don't mind having both of them, but the issue is if you want a ceiling, they're going to have to get those like 8-10 rebounds. And if you're taking both of them in the same lineup, on DraftKings you can, on FanDuel you can't, then you're kind of limiting your upside just because only one of the guys can get a rebound per time. Now in the center spot on DraftKings, Richard, Giannis, Valanciunas, Jacob Podol, Wemby. Podol we haven't talked about. He's in a decent spot here. His minutes are just so hard. He plays 24 to 28, and I don't really feel comfortable with any of them. So I don't love going there in this spot, but I get it if you want to. Hartenstein, 5K. He's going to play 26, 28 minutes off the bench, and he's good for a fantasy point per minute. So not an awful spot to go there either. It's going to be at low owned because he's not starting. Capella, I don't mind. I'm getting to a little bit of him as well. His minutes have been a little better lately, but he just goes through these periods where he's 28 minutes, 30 minutes, then back down to 24, and you just don't really know what's going to come. So I don't mind going here, but there are some worries in that aspect for me. Now, high matchup spots, Jaren Jackson Jr., extremely interesting. I covered this on the prop show. Houston is allowing way more blocks at home than they are away, which is very interesting. Maybe they're just driving more. I don't know totally what it is, but that's Jaren Jackson's specialty. He can definitely add some steals, blocks, all that. And at the center position, he just has a little bit higher of a ceiling. And that's where he's been playing lately. If he starts there again, I'm a little bit intrigued. Miles Turner, guy's been playing extremely well lately. And the thing is that he's been getting minutes, 31, 32 versus, 28-ish like he was getting all through here. When he's getting that type of minutes in this nice of a pace-up spot, I do really like it. Jalen Smith is also still out, so that is probably part of why he's getting more secure minutes. And don't mind going here whatsoever. We've seen big-time ceiling. He's hit 40 regularly. But if he gets a 50-plus game, it's looking real nice. AD is fairly interesting in this spot. We know the ceiling that he has. It's just, is he playing or not? Remember to pay attention to that Laker injury report, or all injury reports up until lock, just because this Laker news could really change it. If LeBron or AD are out, the other one looks way better, but also there's a ton of value pieces that become a little interesting, especially in a higher paced game. So pay attention to that stuff. I think all in all, it's a pretty interesting slate today. And I'll talk to you guys later. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.